Hey, friends, welcome back to Out of the Box Thinking, the podcast where we take life's most frustrating, confusing, and downright bizarre experiences and find new ways to make sense of them. I'm your host, Danica, and today we're talking about healing, trust, and what happens when you try to rush the process through the lens of baking a cake without a recipe. Because let's be real, sometimes life feels like throwing random ingredients into a bowl and just hoping it turns out edible. Have you ever felt like you're doing all the right things in healing, but nothing seems to be happening fast enough? Have you ever looked at other people and thought, why does their process look so much easier than mine? If so, love, you're not alone. And today we're diving into why that is and what we can learn from a good old fashioned, slightly chaotic, no recipe baking experiment. So let's set the scene. You want to bake a cake. You've got all the ingredients, the flour, the sugar, the eggs, the vanilla, all the good stuff, except you have no recipe. You're just eyeballing it, hoping for the best, trusting that eventually something cake-like will emerge from the oven. This is healing. You're mixing in therapy, self-work, mindfulness, journaling, whatever ingredients you've gathered, right? You're trying your best to make something beautiful out of what you have. But here's where the frustration kicks in. There's no set timeline for when the cake will be done. You don't know if you're using the right amount of anything. And checking the oven every 5 minutes won't make it bake any faster. And yet, how often do we do this in our healing journey? We mix ingredients, we throw it in the oven, and then we stand there impatiently, staring at it, convinced that something must be wrong because it's not ready yet. I have to admit, I've tried baking without a recipe before. Thought, how hard can it be? Add flour, sugar, eggs, all the things that should, in theory, make a cake. Eyeballing the measurements, mixed it up, tossed it in the oven, probably with a toddler in tow. Full confidence that that masterpiece was about to emerge. Spoiler alert, it was a disaster. The outside baked too fast, the inside stayed raw, and the whole thing collapsed the second I took it out. Turns out, guessing the right ratios doesn't always work. And that's exactly what happens in healing. Sometimes we think we're doing all the right things, but we're missing a key ingredient. Or rushing the process, expecting perfection too soon. So let's pause for a second. Can you relate? Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but the progress feels invisible? Have you ever looked at someone else's finished cake and wondered why yours is still gooey in the middle? Or be honest, have you ever tried to rush healing? The way someone might crank up the oven to 500 degrees, hoping to bake the cake faster? Yeah, it usually burns the edges while the inside stays raw. So I want you to think about your own process. Are you trusting the timing? Or are you stuck in frustration because the results aren't showing up on your schedule? So here's the thing. Not every cake is the same. Some cakes take longer to bake. Some need different ingredients. A souffle isn't a pound cake, and a pound cake isn't a lava cake, right? Your healing isn't going to look like someone else's because you're not baking the same cake. What worked for someone else might not be what you need, and that's okay. Maybe your journey takes longer because you're layering more depth into your healing. Maybe you're experimenting with different ingredients until you find out what works best for you. Right? Maybe you like a vanilla cake and not a chocolate cake. The point is, no one else could tell you exactly how long your process should take. So let's say you get impatient. You pull the cake out too soon, thinking, it's been long enough, it should be done by now. Take a bite. It's raw. Not just a little underbaked, straight up inedible. This is what happens when we focus, not when we focus, but when we force healing before it's ready. When we try to move on before we've really processed. When we push through emotions instead of sitting with them. You know the hard truth? Healing is happening even when you can't see it. Just like the cake baking, even when the oven door is closed. The heat's doing its job. The ingredients are transforming. You just have to trust that it's working. even when nothing looks different yet. Right? And maybe, just maybe, you don't have to stand there anxiously watching it. Maybe it's okay to step away for a while. Do something else. Let your system catch up. Let time work its magic. Because sometimes the best thing you can do for healing is to stop trying so hard and just let it be. All right, love. So, what's your takeaway today? Where in your life are you impatiently staring at the oven instead of trusting the process? This week, I challenge you to step back, to let your healing unfold without micromanaging it, to trust that even if you can't see the transformation yet, it's happening. And if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Find me on social media at Danica Allison or at Purpose in the Pieces, or send me a message about where you are in this baking process. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting your own journey, even when it's messy. And most of all, thanks for showing up for yourself. Until next time, keep mixing, keep baking, and trust that your masterpiece is on its way.